The following podcast you're about to listen to is brought to you by the Push Start Media Network, where everything you do in life begins with pushing start. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of SYE Quick Hits. I am your humble host, Bryce Benjamin, along with my co-host, Ed Reuter. Today's episode, we are discussing the 2020 outlook for the E-A-G-L-E-S Eagles.
That was beautiful.
Thank you, man.
You've been practicing that?
I've been practicing that for weeks now, and I just wanted to make sure I nail it today. And I think I did.
You killed it. You killed it.
Goddamn right I did.
Good. It sounded really good.
Goddamn right. So, Eagles 2019 season, pretty rough. They pretty much hobbled to the finish line there and was up and down throughout the whole season, really. First 8 weeks, kind of was average. Lost 3 games in a row, New England, Seattle, Miami. But eventually was able to get their shit together and finished out strong, winning their last 4 games, which were all division games, against the Giants, Redskins, Cowboys, and Giants, and ultimately was able to hold off the Cowboys and win that division. Riddled with injuries throughout the whole season. It was to the point where Carson Wentz was literally throwing the practice squad players, running backs, and then just his only reliable targets at that point was Goddard and Zach Ertz. Defense sustained some injuries, offensive line. I mean, their wings was pretty much clipped going into the playoffs. And then to make matters worse, they finally get there, and Carson Wentz goes down with a concussion early in the game, and they had to rely on the backup quarterback, McCown. And, I mean, they pretty much was over at that point. But they was able to kind of have a pretty decent offseason. They looked at their issues. They seen what was going on, and you could tell that they try to address those issues there. In the free agency market, they was able to sign a couple of nice additions there for themselves. Darius Slay, traded him from the Lions, so they was able to shore up that secondary there for them. Javon Hargraves, nickel cornerback, Nicole Roby Coleman. What do you think about this 2019 Eagles team, or 2020 Eagles team, Ed?
Well, I think they're a team that's going to be much improved, if for no other reason, just having some healthy players back. Yeah. I mean, you were exactly right. I mean, Carson Wentz might as well have been throwing at one of those Under Armour mannequins at the mall, right?
Seriously.
Those guys that have those huge chests but no arms. That's basically what he was throwing at last year. Mm-hmm. Looking at it. So with that, Carson Wentz was still able to put up over 4,000 yards, still threw 27 touchdowns compared to only 7 interceptions. So they've got themselves a franchise quarterback. He's a stud. He's a winner. Can he stay healthy? It's a big question. He's had some injury problems throughout his entire career, missing large chunks of time. We all know what that did for Nick Foles' career. That earned him close to $100 million, those Carson Wentz injuries.
And all the cheesesteaks he can eat in Philadelphia.
Forever. He's free Philly cheesesteaks forever. He's a hero of lore now in Philadelphia.
Legend. But
to say, what to look forward to with this 2020 team, just getting some of these players back on the field, I think it's easy to forget because he was throwing at players that were of a lesser caliber last year. He's going to get Alshon Jeffery back. He's going to get DeSean Jackson back. He should have a full season out of Dallas Goedert. That's going to be really helpful, just right out of the gate. I really like their running backs, too, with Miles Sanders and Corey Clement. Those are 2 great players that I think you can lean on there, too. Sanders caught 50 passes last year, and he wasn't even like the full-time starter out of the gate. So he's a really versatile back. So offensively, this team's going to be okay. What I think that's the most exciting thing for the Eagles is that as good as I think their offense can be, looking at their front 4, it might be about the best in football, man. I really do think that. Fletcher Cox is just a man-child on the defensive line. They've got Malik Jackson there with them. You mentioned Javon Hargrave coming over. It's just they're going to be really good, man. Really, really tough to run against. They're going to have a strong pass rush. Combine that with a decent offense, and you've got a really nice-looking team this year.
I think you hit the nail on the head with the health issues. First of all, it starts with Carson Wentz. He's been one of those guys who has that stigma about him. Can he stay healthy? You know, it seems like he's always getting hurt. It seems like he's always getting hurt during crucial moments for this team. And now, last year and years before that, last year they didn't have Nick Foles to kind of rely upon to lead them to the promised land. And they addressed it in the draft. Like, they used a second round pick on Jalen Hurts. And that to much chagrin, like, it was very frowned upon by a lot of people. But at the same time, I understand it. You know, you don't want to go and have yourself in a compromised situation like you did last year in the playoffs, where you're playing a fucking 40-year-old McCown to try to win a damn playoff game. And, you know, no disrespect to McCown, but, you know, it kind of is what it is. So I get why they did that. And yeah, they got the receivers back, and hopefully they can stay healthy. Like Alshon Jeffery, when healthy, he's one of the top 12, 15 receivers in the league. And, you know, they also have DeSean Jackson back. They went out and got Marquise Goodwin to be a nice little slot guy, and then drafted receiver first round with Jalen Reagor. And so you could tell that they want speed on that team. Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, they form one of the most formidable tight end duos in the league. And then offensive line wise, Jason Peters, longtime left tackle, he's gone off the team. He's being replaced officially now by Andre Dillard. They still got probably the best center in football in Jason Kelsey. And then Lane Johnson, one of the best right tackles in the league as well. And then, yeah, on the other side of the football, I agree with you. That front four is going to be wrecking havoc. Like, you have that combination of Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox. You can rotate in with Javon Hargrave, who they signed, and then Malik Jackson. And then also Derek Barnett. That's a very formidable pass rushing unit, and then also run stopping unit. I think the big question for them on defense is going to be, first of all, how do they replace Malcolm Jenkins, who signed back with the New Orleans Saints? And then also, how does this linebacking core look? Because I don't recognize none of these names.
I'm still waiting for the phone call. They might want me to suit up at linebacker, because
yes.
I'm looking at these names here. I'm looking at like Jannard Avery and Alex Singleton and Duke Riley, and I'm scratching my head here thinking, man, as good as the front four is going to be, and as nice as their secondary could be with Rodney McLeod and Darius Slay, Nickel Roby-Coleman, I'm just wondering, who are these guys?
Seriously. Darius Slay was an excellent addition. They was able to pry him away from Detroit for, I don't have the exact capital of what they gave up, but I believe it was something with like a third round pick or something like that, which Darius Slay is one of the top cornerbacks in the league, you know, hands down. And now that's one thing about Philadelphia. They're always going to have themselves an excellent corner. Sidney Jones, he will be replacing Ronald Darby. I said that backwards. He'll be replacing him, who signed with Washington. So he had an up and down season last year for them. I think they have high hopes because he has a ton of talent, and he can learn from Darius Slay, and hopefully he can pick up his game. And then you go out and get one of the best slot cornerbacks in NRC. So I think that secondary should be pretty solid. They still got Rodney McLeod in there. It looks like Jalen Mills is going to be filling in for Malcolm Jenkins, so that's going to be interesting to keep an eye on. And then on top of that, you still got one of the best defensive minds in Jim Schwartz coordinating this defense. So I think they'll be all right on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I don't see how they wouldn't be. I think you can hide in this NFL. You can hide a bad linebacking core by having a front four, or even, you know, five guys if you're rotating in, that can get after the quarterback quickly. And then you have a secondary that can hold down the receivers for that, you know, 3 to 4 second period. You can get away with not having a super strong core of linebackers. When I was growing up, everything was about the linebackers. Mm-hmm. Your inside linebackers, your outside linebackers, they could all rush the quarterback. They could all drop back into coverage, and that was what defenses relied on. A lot of times, your defensive line was just the 3 or 4 biggest guys on the team. We throw them up there and just stuff up the middle to make it tough to run up the middle. But it was your linebackers that were the anchor of the entire defense. It seems like, to quite a large degree, the NFL is getting away from that, and with the new rules that have come out over the last 5 to 10 years, getting those edge rushers that are coming out there and getting after the quarterback quickly, and then having shutdown corners to pair up with that, it seems to be like that's the way that the league is going. So if there's any holes nowadays in 2020 that you can have and not be an incredible burden to your team, I would have to say it's at linebacker. So the Eagles might be okay here. I think that they should be just fine. They'll be all right.
One question that I have about this team is on offense, and not necessarily their roster, but calling the plays. Doug Peterson, he did not hire an offensive coordinator this offseason. He's going to be pretty much the pseudo offensive coordinator as well as head coach. Now, he said that he called the plays last year anyways, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see if that's going to be too much for his plate, because now you have to manage not only the whole team because you're the head coach, but then your primary focus is going to be on the offensive side of the ball, and he's an offensive coach. He's a former quarterbacks coach, so I'm very interested to see if that will play any type of factor in for this team here for them, but. Ultimately, you look at this roster up and down, it's very solid on paper. You have Carson Wentz, who proved last year he's one of the top quarterbacks in the game. There's several different conversations going on that you see on all the different talk shows about him. But to me, he just proved, man, I am a fucking franchise quarterback. They drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round this past draft to kind of protect themselves. And as long as Carson Wentz can stay healthy, they can mess around and flip that Hurts pick for, somebody to trade him to another team and develop him. Or if Carson Wentz does go down to injury again, you do have hopefully a reliable backup there for him. So I do like this Eagles team. You look at their schedule coming into this season. All right, they're playing the AFC North, and then they're also playing the NFC West. So that's going to be a very tough schedule to go through. You got to play teams like Pittsburgh and Baltimore, and then you got to play a very improved Cardinals team, along with, of course, the Seahawks, the Rams, and then the Super Bowl runner-ups, the 49ers. Bruder, I want to kind of get your prediction here. Taking a look at this schedule, looking at this Eagles team, how does that 2020 season fare?
It's tough again. I've been saying in a lot of these quick hits episodes that there's no easy games in the NFL. And I think as much perseverance as they showed last year to hang on and win that division, to come back strong, win their last 4 games in the division, which is always tough, and come out as division champs, you've got to think that it was the Cowboys that blew the division last year more so than it was the Eagles winning the division last year. And I don't think that the Cowboys do that again. As much as I like this Eagles team, I think they're a playoff team. They're going to get one of those top 7 spots. I firmly believe that, but they're not a division-winning team. I put them at 9-7, which will be solid enough for that 6th or 7th seed. And I don't see them overtaking the Cowboys this year for the division with the Cowboys' new coaching staff. Yeah, interesting.
Actually, you know what? I think that plays a huge factor, because the Eagles is the only team in this division that has continuity among their coaching staff. Every other team in this division changed coaching regimes. The Cowboys brought in Mark McCarthy, the Redskins bring in Ron Rivera, and then the Giants bring in Joe Judge. None of those teams had offseason programs because of this pandemic going on. The Eagles know who they are. They have their culture established, and I think that plays very favorable to that division and to this team. I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the NFC this year.
Really?
I really do.
Okay.
And it's a little biased. The Eagles is one of those teams that I flirt with. Like, they're one of my favorite, besides the Baltimore Ravens, obviously that's my team. The Eagles is, if I had to pick a second team, that would be them. Like the Eagles would be it.
You just love any team that has a bird name in it, huh?
And I like their colors.
You like their colors.
I like the green and black.
That's fair. You like their colors.
Yeah, I like. Okay. I always liked the team. I always liked Donovan McNabb. I always liked Brian Dawkins, and I kind of always had just a little crush on them.
There's worse reasons to like a team, I suppose. So you're okay.
But I do like this Eagles team. I think they are the favorites to win this division. I believe they have